Good Sunday morning, everybody. I'm glad you've taken the opportunity to tune in this morning. This Sunday morning is posted at 8 o'clock. I hope that you get the chance to tune in and watch it. If you do, put a like, a comment, prayer request especially. We want to make sure that we're ministering to one another, so please take advantage of that. Let me know that you've been here, again, in whatever way that works for you. We've been doing our series that we've been working on for a couple of weeks now, Biblical Wisdom for the Family. And we've been working through a couple of different things. Today we're going to be talking about speech. And I went to YouTube and I tried to find maybe some fun stuff that I could play, but I really couldn't find a fun video that would kind of make sense with this. So we're not going to have a fun video today. I've got a story to tell you at the end that I think wraps up pretty well this thing about speech, good words that we're going to be using today. So again, our series is Biblical Wisdom for the Family, and today our lesson is good talk. Good talk. Maybe that's happened to you. I think my kids were probably the first ones to ever say this to me, when they were teenagers. You want to cover something with them and they look at you when they're done and go, yeah, good talk. Okay, good talk, Dad. Thanks for chiming in. So we want to have good speech. We want to have good talk. And in Proverbs, that's where we're going to be. We're going to be in Proverbs and chapter 10, and verses 11 and 12. I'll give you a moment just to go back there, but Proverbs 10, 11, and 12, I'll give you a moment just to go ahead and maybe perhaps find it in your Bible. It'll be on the screen. But still, if you want to find it so you can make markings or do whatever you do with that. But we'll read Proverbs 10, verses 11 and 12 says, "The mouth of the righteous is a well of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sins." When it comes to our families, biblical wisdom for our families, this is something we need to consider. How we say what we say. Barb and I have talked about it before on our own marriage. Tone makes a difference. How I say something to her can make a difference in how she kind of responds and hears that. And so tone makes a difference. Certainly, we're going to be talking about really what it is that we do say. And when we go back to Proverbs and look at those verses again very quickly, that mouth, those words of righteous is a well of life. We know that's true. We know that's when we speak well to one another, well of one another, that it just adds to life. It doesn't take anything away. It doesn't diminish or minimize anything. It simply gives us the ability to build people up. The converse is true. Violence, but those who speak violent things, it covers the mouth of the wicked. It's not a good thing to be someone who speaks violent words. And so that's the first part that we're going to cover, is that negative aspect of speech, that negative aspect of words, and we're calling that destructive words. So in this lesson on good talk, we're just going to go through some things that are destructive words, words that we don't want to have as part of our routine, part of the things that we say. The first one is pretty easy, lying. This starts pretty early in life. It doesn't take long for even little children to begin to learn how to lie, to say things they ought not to say because they don't want to get in trouble. So certainly I remember my children doing this when they were little. I now see my grandchildren doing this. It can even be the simplest thing that they've done wrong, but they really don't want to admit it, so they'll lie about what it is that's going on. But lying is such a destructive thing. The scriptures talk about it in Proverbs 12:19. "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only for a moment." People don't even want to listen to someone that's a liar. I don't know, maybe you've known someone that you just know when they open their mouth, it's really possible that whatever's going to come out of there isn't true. And you just kind of tune them out. You don't listen to them anymore. Lying lips, in Proverbs 12:22 says, "Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord." That's pretty strong language. For the Old Testament in Proverbs, for Solomon to use the word abomination, that lying is an abomination to the Lord. It's serious business when we're talking about this issue of lying. Kind of something that folds into that when we're talking about these negative things is gossiping. Gossiping, destructive words. Gossiping. Who hasn't done it? Who's not guilty of this? I think we probably all, at maybe one time or another, been guilty of saying some things to other people that we shouldn't have said, things that we should not probably have repeated. We're all probably guilty of this. In Leviticus 19:16, God records through Moses, "You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people." To be someone who's known to be someone who tells stories about others. And I don't know, I've never found anybody who was, that tells stories about others that they're helpful. They're helpful stories in some way. They're just usually not. It's usually something that's negative and something that we have to be very careful of it. In Proverbs 11:13, the Bible tells us a talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is of a faithful spirit conceals a matter. Did you know that every piece of news that you get about somebody else you don't have to repeat? It happens with me all the time. There are things that happen to folks here at our church. Good, faithful people. Maybe they mess up, they do something wrong, something goes wrong in their life. It doesn't matter what it is. It could even be a good thing. You don't need to repeat it. You don't necessarily need to go around and tell everybody about it. But this idea of gossiping certainly has that negative connotation. You know that so-and-so, maybe one of your friends, has done something that is sinful. Well, if that circle of people that know about that is very small, keep it very small. Don't be repeating it to other people. What's the upside of that? What's the benefit in that? So flattery, this idea, of gossiping. Gossiping is a very destructive thing that can happen. And I let in on the next one, which is flattery. Negative words. Now, there's a place for giving honor to someone. There's a place for that. But this idea of flattery isn't flattery like, well, I'm giving you a compliment. It's something that I think you need to know. And here's a compliment that I want to pay to you. That's not what this is. This is giving someone compliments for the purpose of getting something from them. You're trying to build into their pride so that you can get some sort of response from them that you want. Something you want from them is what you're trying to achieve. You're not trying to actually build them up. You're not trying to flatter them in any positive way. This is so that the person who's speaking the flattering words can find some sort of a benefit in it. Next, speaking in anger. Angry words. An angry man stirs up dissension, Proverbs 29:22 says, and a hot-tempered one commits many sins. I don't know, again, if you know anyone, maybe this has happened to you. I know it's happened to me. But when anger gets the best of us, and when our angry words start rolling out, and we go back and look at that verse again, talking about angry people, a hot-tempered one commits many sins. And I don't know if you've been there. I know I have. You say things that you wish you could take back. They were hurtful, they were mean, they were angry, and you said them, and there's nothing now that you can do about it, and it puts you in a position where you commit sin. Be very careful when it comes to this issue of angry words. Here's one that I hadn't thought of, but I read in a book. Too much. Too much. Too much words. Too much talking. Too much talking over someone. Proverbs 10:19 says, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise. Now, I know that I can be guilty of this sometimes. Here, I don't have any choice. I'm either talking or there's dead air, but this isn't my preference. I kind of wish, even this lesson in particular, I was thinking would have been a great discussion type of thing that we could have gone back and forth with. But when it comes to this issue of talking too much, I know that I'm guilty of this one-on-one, perhaps, when I'm talking to someone, and I know that I can tend to dominate a conversation. Barb and I have been out on visitation where if I start to talk too much, she'll kind of like put her hand on my arm or something, and I know what she means. Time for you to shut up. Sometimes you need that. But talking too much, thinking that you have to have the last word, thinking that you have to have the first word. It may even be the person that just wants to talk so much that if you're on the phone with them, you could put the phone down, come back 2 or 3 minutes later, say, yeah, and they don't even know you've left. Of course, make sure that you say, yeah, and it's not an inappropriate, yeah, But too much talking can also be a negative thing. Let's move to the positive. There's destructive words. There's also building words. And we want to talk about that as we finish up today. There are words that build up, words that are profitable for people to hear, and ones that we should be involved in saying, not waiting for somebody else. But the first one is peaceful. If there's ever a day and a time when we could use some people saying peaceful words, it's certainly today. There's just so many people speaking hatred and vitriol, and it's almost discouraging to turn on any news channel, because all it is just people saying mean things to one another. I appreciate when I turn in the news and I see somebody that's kind of got that middle ground perspective, that's trying to find some compromise that people can get along with one another, and they're speaking peaceful words. They're saying things that aren't going to cause more division and strife. Are there times when we need to stand up and declare certain things? Absolutely there are. But I can tell you more times than not, it's the peaceful person, it's the peaceful words that are going to get more attention than the ones that are hatred and divisive, difficult words. So peaceful words. There's also this idea in words that talking about restoration, words that restore those who sin. Proverbs 25:12 says, "As an earring of gold, an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient," or what we would say is a listening ear. And so when we reprove someone who's open to that, when we've got that relationship with them where we can go to them and give them a word that says, hey, a little bit on the wrong track here, we want to just restore you. Now, of course, we know that the New Testament warns us that we need to be where we should be spiritually. We shouldn't be a hypocrite going to somebody else when our life is full of sin, trying to straighten somebody else out and get them back onto a path. But this idea of restorative words is that we gain a brother back, we gain a sister back, we gain somebody back who's walked away into sin, and we've brought them back to a place where they're now walking with Christ. So there's restorative words, that idea that we're going to use these words to be used for restoration. There's also words of instruction. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, Proverbs 15:7. Man, that could be a verse that everybody could just memorize. I'll read it again. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge. So if you want to be known as a wise person, someone, then give good, wholesome words out to people, words of instruction. The person that has good wisdom in their heart and decides they're going to share it with other people and they're going to try to build people up, man, it makes a big difference. But there has to be instruction in words. Not everything is a learning opportunity, but there ought to be opportunities where we teach our children, where we're instructing others, where others are instructing us, and we're open to that. But certainly, when it comes to that, we're trying to instruct people so that they can know more than they knew before. So we've got instructive words, and then encouraging words. Encouraging words are words that build people up who are burdened. Anxiety in the heart of a man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad. Proverbs 12, verse 25. So the words of a person that comes alongside another to encourage them can take them from an area of where they're really down and help build them back up. I'm not saying it happens overnight. We know that because of the way just we are as human beings, that we're going to have difficult times. But isn't it nice when a brother or sister comes alongside and builds us up, it encourages us, it helps us to get better from the place where we were. So when we go back and look at all of those again, we see that we should be speaking peaceful words, restorative words, instructive words, and encouraging words to one another in our home, because that's where we're really talking about, isn't it? We're talking about within the framework of our home, we ought to be doing these things with speech. We ought to be speaking encouraging words. We ought to be telling people things that build them up. I'm going to finish with this story that I heard. And I heard it recently, but I can't remember all of the particular details. But there was a young man who was on his way home from school, freshman in high school. And he had all of his books with him as he walked down the street. He had everything it looked like that was in his locker. And he was on his way home. had the nerd glasses, had the pocket protector, just kind of one of those kids that you just know kind of struggles socially in school. And as he was on his way home, he passed a group of boys, and one of the boys in the group, one of the popular kids who played on the football team and did all those things, noticed him and realized that he was just really struggling, that he had this burden, this load that he was carrying. And so he went over to him and he just offered to help him. He didn't know him. And he said to him, "Hey, listen, let me help you get this stuff home. Why are you carrying all your books?" It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to him, but he thought he'd help him. And on the way home, they struck up just a really basic friendship. And from there, this young man, believing that the guy who was carrying all the books was doing it because he loved to study and do things, just began to make him his friend. Thought, I'm going to meet him part way to school as we walk together. And from that, they developed a great friendship. The young man who was carrying all the books and was a little bit of that socially awkward kid decided he'd step out. He ran for student government. He ended up becoming class president, and eventually, even at graduation, became the valedictorian of his class. All through that experience, these two young men had developed a great friendship with one another. All through that, they spoke encouraging words to one another. They built one another up, but it all went back to that one day. What the guy who was with all of his friends in a popular group didn't know was that the young man that was carrying all of the books and apparently everything from his locker back home was doing that because he was taking it all home so his parents, after he went home to commit suicide, wouldn't have to go back and clean his locker out. That's why he had all his books. He didn't have everything from his locker because he wanted to go home and study everything. He didn't want his parents to have to go and clean all of that out for him. Now, that young man that approached him had no idea. He just assumed that this young man loved to study and wanted to take everything home. And his assumption was wrong. But by speaking an encouraging word to him, by developing a friendship with this young man went from a place in his life as a freshman in high school who had given up, was going to go home and kill himself, to someone who became the valedictorian of his class. Because the words of a stranger, at that time anyway, had a great impact on his life. How much more important are those type of words that we speak ought to be to the Christian when it comes to building words, peaceful words, words of encouragement, words of restoration, and words of instruction. We'll end with that. I hope that's been encouraging to you. I hope that we all get better with the way we say what we say. And in the current climate of our country, I certainly hope that you are someone, whether it's on social media, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's on a telephone, text, it doesn't make any difference how you communicate. Let's communicate good words. Let's communicate wholesome words. Let's not run down any other particular party. Let's not run down any particular person. Let's build one another up. Let's look for the good in the situations, and let's use great words and great speech to be those people that Jesus commands us to be, holy, acceptable unto Him. Well, God bless you. I hope you have a good day, and I'm looking forward to next week. We'll finish up this particular 4-week series, and we'll head into another one in February. God bless you. Have a good day.